All right, well, it's my honor and I'm humbled to be able to introduce our speaker today, the Reverend Angelica Roth. He is a metaphysician and a PhD candidate in metaphysics. Angelica is the founder of Earth and Sky Center and Alley Cat Angels of America. She's passionate about everything she does. She loves traveling and teaching throughout the United States and Canada. She also really cares about the local community. She's a Reiki master. I did pronounce that right?
Reiki.
Very close. I got one of the syllables right. I knew that. Reiki master of 8 different lineages of Reiki and loves to teach Reiki. She sees it as the core foundation for living an amazing and meaningful life. Reverend Roth leads weekly life talks on her YouTube channel and also offers sound journey healing concerts as well as one-on-one sessions. She's always on the move and willing to help others wherever she can. She teaches a wide variety of classes through the Dragon Fire teachings, including Dragon Fire, Reiki, all levels of Usul, probably didn't pronounce that right, Holy Fire, 3 Reiki, shamanism, and much more. Please help me welcome Brother Roth.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming here today. It's always nice to gather with like-minded people, and I love the Unitarians, especially because we're like-minded in our belief of love and our acceptance of each other and recognizing the unity that we all have, even when our beliefs on certain things might be very different from one another. We hold within the Unitarians that respect for that belief, and I love that. I have, if we can get that perfect. I have escaped death many times in my life. I've been surrounded by and a very close friend to death since I was very, very young. At an early age, I learned to get very comfortable with death. It's an important and helpful thing, I believe, to be able to live a really full life, to get comfortable with this, and where so many people often don't like to talk about death. It sometimes frightens people, I think. And it's interesting, I was recently talking to my husband about how it seems children are never really afraid of death. And it would seem that as we go through our life and we have a vast fulfillment of different experiences that we have, that we would seemingly become more comfortable with it as we got towards the end. But I find that for most, that's actually the opposite. The older we get, the more we're afraid of it. And I believe that children are often not afraid of it because they just came from the other side. So they remember it's pretty great over there. And I think that as we get more comfortable in this life, whether you love your life or not, I think we get comfortable with what we're used to here, and then we get afraid to let go of it at the end. But the fact is really that we're all born terminal. We have a relatively short life on earth to be able to experience the things that we can. And I think the reason that it is so short is to help us appreciate it. If we were here for hundreds and hundreds of years, we would really feel like we had all of the time that we need to do whatever it is that we want to do. But because it's relatively short, it kind of lights a fire under us in a way where we realize, I need to get certain things done. If I want to achieve this in this life, then I better focus on this. And I think that when we bring our power back into ourselves of realizing it's not something that's slipping away from us, it's something that we are increasing with every experience that we have. The uncomfortable ones, the ones that bring us joy, the ones that we hope will never come back, and all of the things that are in between that as well. When we recognize, it helps us to really be able to appreciate the finite nature of our infinite existence and how we go on and on and on so much beyond what just this life is here. it makes sense to me to try to become more comfortable with it, I think, instead of running from it. I think the things that we run from often feel like they are chasing us, and it can make us miss out on several important things that come along our way. I think part of this fear comes from people feeling like maybe they have unfulfilled missions, or they haven't done all the things that they really want to do. And life can be very distracting. I think at times it can be very easy to feel like there's certain things we want to do, and the time goes so quickly, or may feel like there are obstacles that are sometimes in our way, but those obstacles are always there as teaching moments, things that we can use to delve more into exploring what this human life is like that we are in. How many of you, just by a show of hands, feel like you know what your main mission is in this life? You know why you're here on this planet right now? Fantastic. Good. Quite a few of you. I love it. How many of you feel like you might know, but you're not really sure exactly? Couple. Good. Nice. And then there would be a whole different talk I could do basically on that, on finding your life purpose and what it is. But it's one thing I really love to focus on and I love to talk about, but it really leads to this one simple thing. How can you have certain victory in your life? How you can have certain victory in your life despite having insurmountable odds that you're facing. A lot of it comes down to if you know what your mission is. I think once you discover that, once something pops out and you realize, I have a purpose in this life, then you realize I can fulfill that. You realize that little steps along the way that may have, if you weren't awakened to that purpose yet, they may have seemed insignificant. But when you realize that purpose, you begin to start seeing, oh, that happened because of this. That happened because of that. And all of these things lead me to where I am now. So I definitely encourage you to kind of think about what things have been going on in your life that maybe start pointing you in one direction. Usually your mission in this life will have something to do with something that you love. It will be something that sparks joy within you. And I think sometimes we feel as humans that we need to do harder work instead of joyful work. But again, that's a whole other talk. As a young child, I knew from the beginning why I was placed here on this earth. I felt a very strong sense of mission within me, even as I was very young. It pushed me forward in my teens, it pushed me forward in my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, and I'll be coming around in just a couple days to my 47th birthday. And it is something that this mission in life is something that I felt from the beginning, and it always is seeming to wake me up early in the mornings, and it keeps me up late at night. There are many times that I also, as a younger person, I just wanted out of it. It felt very heavy to me in the beginning. There were times where I felt like the mission that I have was something perhaps insurmountable, and I wasn't sure how to get there. And instead, I felt the pain of the world all around me. I felt the pain of all of the people that were around me. I felt the pain of the circumstances that I was in. And to me, at a young age, it felt very, very heavy to be in this world. I am here, I know, to awaken the light of love in people. I know that's my main mission, is to show people so they can see how loved you are, and to see the infinite expanse of this light of love that we come from on the other side. But my beginnings in life really didn't necessarily start surrounded in love. And I think it's those hard things that we have to go through sometimes that help us to become who we are capable of being. Without those really hard, challenging circumstances, I wouldn't be the same person that I am here today. So many of us come from homes where we had trials to help us discover what we came here to learn. But it's a funny thing about human nature that we tend to have this ideal picture of where we feel like everyone else came from. We feel like our own situations may have been rooted in a lot of challenges, but we also sometimes feel like we're different from everyone because of those challenges. But those challenges actually make us quite similar to most everyone out there. Their challenges may have been different. They may have different triggers that were installed at that young age. when really our families are there to install the buttons in us that become triggers in life so that we can learn the lessons that we came here to learn. I think that we often forget that, or maybe we haven't realized that oftentimes, and we may feel resentful of family members or resentful of the challenges that happened, but it's those challenges that create the triggers for the life lessons that we wanted to come here to learn. And it's those challenges and those triggers that give us the ability to shift into a state of power, to shift into a state of seeing multiple perspectives. So how do you shift these challenges into a place where you can overcome insurmountable odds? I'm going to give you a little bit of a backstory here. I was born in the year of the fire dragon in 1976. My stepfather was an alcoholic and was very, very abusive. I remember going to different hotels as a young child, and I would try to, as we were escaping the physical abuse at home, and around 5 or 6 years old, I remember trying to shield my mother to get her into the car so that we could get to safety, blocking her from him. And I remember trying to send telepathic messages to the hotel clerks as we were checking in for a room, letting them know we need more than just a room, we really need some help in our family. The clerks never quite got that telepathic message, I don't think. But around the age of 12 or so, I had decided that this world was just too heavy for me, and I was done. I tried to kill myself, and I'm in the medical textbooks for the way I tried to kill myself because it should have succeeded, but it didn't. By some kind of miracle, I survived. At that point, I was very mad about that. Personally, I was just very mad. I was mad they brought me back. I remember my mother's very first words to me when I came back. She said, "How dare you try to leave me so that I would be stuck with your stepfather without you?" I left home initially at age 15 because it felt safer to live in the streets than to live at home with them. I had many different interesting experiences living on the streets as a teenager, and it was during this time, though, that I was inspired by the kindness of strangers, by people that I had no idea who they were, that probably some would consider a dangerous person, but they were very kind to me and very helpful. These experiences solidified even more within me the practices that I feel are so important about how we treat others, whether we know them or not, how we never really know what someone is going through, and how we never really know what stories have shaped who they are and where they are now in their life. But we always, no matter where we are in life, no matter who we are, no matter what's going on, we have the ability to be kind. It's within us. It's a choice that we can always make. When we are kind to others, it actually makes our own day better too. I returned home for a short period of time and taught myself high school in 1.5 years so I could go right into college at full-time at the age of 16. I knew that I had a mission to complete in this life, and I knew the universe was not letting me get out of it despite multiple attempts. And I wanted to complete my mission as quickly as possible, which was to bring that light of love into the world. There were some setbacks that happened again when I was in my early 20s, and a series of events happened that had me very sick and facing death again. I had been sitting on the couch next to my husband, and I turned to face him, and there was this loud ripping sound, like a pair of jeans ripping, and a really loud popping sound that had happened. And what I didn't know was that I had just torn the right ligament, the outer big ligament in my leg, and dislocated my knee. I was a little annoyed because I was telling a story to my husband and he was interrupting me, trying to figure out what was that sound. That was not good. And I really just wanted to finish my story. So I got up and I walked into the powder room for a minute. And when I got up to come back into the living room, I realized my lower leg was off to the side. It wasn't under my top leg. And I realized that was probably not a good thing. And thankfully he had some ice, and I was able to reset my knee and get it back in place on my own, but it ended up resulting in me needing surgery later, and That then ended up escalating into what became the next 8 years of my life. It was about 3 days before I went to the hospital after it had ripped the ligament. I could be a little stubborn, and I always felt like I can be really strong, and sometimes I don't realize when I need a little help. I've been working on that over the last couple decades. When I went in and I eventually had the surgery, I woke up twice during the surgery. The first time I asked the anesthesiologist to please put me back under. The second time I remember looking at her, and she turned around and dialed the machines up very quickly. And it had several interesting things that happened within that. But over the next, over the next 8 years, I ended up getting a little bit worse every single day. As you can see from the photo, I ended up becoming very, very thin. I ended up having kidney failure, issues with my lungs, liver, digestive aspects, 5 different issues with my heart, and a couple masses in my brain. The primary diagnosis was systemic lupus with organ involvement and fibromyalgia and a few other things that I don't really have time to mention because they don't matter. There were multiple times where the doctors would tell my husband, JJ, that he should prepare himself because I would not be making it through the night and that time was short. There were multiple times where I had slipped to the other side, and JJ would always bring me back if I stopped breathing in the night and shaking me, yelling at me. And I would again get kind of mad at him for that too, because everything on the other side was so peaceful and so beautiful, and this radiant light of love would surround me. But again, I had a mission here. The universe said, I need to complete this mission that's here in this life. I think because of some of these experiences, it helped me to release that fear of death because I've been there. I know it's a wonderful place, and it's something that we should not go to until it is our time, though. It was very difficult to come back into this world that was so heavy and where my body was filled with pain constantly, 24/7. At the time, I didn't really want anyone to know I was sick because I didn't want their sympathy, and I didn't want them to look at me as the sick person or to be worried about me. And I see now that maybe that wasn't the best way to handle it. That put quite a lot of weight on my husband and was unfair to others when they later found out, years later, what we had been going through at that time. But I do often joke that death would try to take me away and my husband would bribe me with chocolate, and it worked because chocolate is a great solution. Yes. There are so many ways that I could have handled that situation. Have you ever heard the phrase, a situation can either make you or it can break you? People often don't realize their choice, though. It would have been such a different situation. Our lives would have been so different if I had instead wondered, why me? Why is this happening to me? Why does it have to be here? Or what else will happen? Or just feeling sorry for myself, or feeling like I couldn't escape the pain and succumbing to the pain. Being able to handle pain and succumbing to it are very different things, but it takes a strong will of strength that we find within ourselves to do that. There's so many other things that I could mention about coming close to death or having seemingly tragic events that happen to me, but I'm not here to make you depressed. I'm going to tell you about how you can be victorious in overcoming your own insurmountable odds. Things when it feels like the pressure is too much, or things where it feels like it is just, there's so much that you're having to handle, or you're not sure how you can achieve the victory that you need to achieve, or the goals that you set for yourself, how you can be able to do that. I went through several years, about 8 years, of needing to be carried from one room to the next, carried to the car for doctor appointments, etc. And at times I was so weak that I couldn't even hold my own glass and my glass of water. With narcolepsy, my husband saved me a few times from having a face full of cereal by sitting me back before I fell forward into a nap. But I'm standing here to tell you about it now, which is incredible. Not only that, I just returned from going to Japan by myself, spending 5 weeks of meditation and training in the mountains of Japan, climbing the mountains every single day. Just last month, I was standing at the very top of Fushimi Inari at night, looking out at that view of Kyoto, looking at from the top of the mountain at the lights below. I climbed to the summit of the mountains many times and spent a lot of time deep in meditation, communing with the oneness and the essence of the nature spirits and the essence of the universe. Sometimes we just need to shift our picture to a bigger picture. We need to allow ourselves to have flexibility, to be able to see the things that are close to us that we would have missed otherwise, and to be able to have flexibility to see our community that is around us as well. I wrote down so many things from my journeys, and I love that with this picture, it kind of shows how you can look from the wider view and you miss seeing the birds and the trees. Sometimes in life, we are looking from a backed up view of our life, and we miss seeing the blessings that are actually right in front of us, the opportunities that we have right in front of us. The ability to hear the birds singing sometimes can be the one spot of joy that you can find in a day, but it is something that you can find, and having that gratitude will help move you forward. I wrote down, as I said, so many things from my journeys, and this was possible because I never gave up on the present moment. Even as I sometimes felt like I was ready to go to the other side, I learned through having strength, through having resilience, I learned how to be very present in the present moment. I often didn't know where the next moments would take me when I was in Japan, but I decided to live in the present moment. And throughout my life, really, I find myself living in the present moment, and I follow three main principles that guide me through my life. If you follow these three main principles, they will guide you to being victorious in your own life too. The first one is grace. Through the light of grace and through acceptance and through laughter, we're going to explore each of these. The light of grace is learning to move through the biggest challenges while maintaining an attitude and embodying the presence of grace. And then the second thing, for acceptance. Acceptance is where you are, acceptance of where you are, instead of trying to be somewhere else. I think it's very easy sometimes that we want to try to go somewhere else. We want to escape where we are. We want to run away from the argument. We want to run away from our pain. We want to escape the job that feels like it's going nowhere, but is there for a reason. With extreme pain, as I was in for 8 years, sometimes the pain that I was in was so high that I couldn't understand people speaking. It sounded like static. My brain couldn't comprehend it as I was dealing with the pain in my body. And with extreme pain, people often try to escape the pain, running from it, squirming in it, trying to get comfortable, chasing it, sometimes chasing it with behaviors that are not life-affirming. But what I found to be the biggest help when I was in extreme pain was to sink into it, to actually become very still and to allow myself to focus on where the pain was so that I was aware of it, focusing on where the borders of the pain were. And I began to notice that as I sank into it and I didn't move, I could feel the edges of the pain would shift and would move, which showed me this pain is impermeable. It is changing. It is not constant. It may feel constant, but when you really look at it, you can see how it shifts. And when you examine it from that angle, you can see how you can begin to shift it as well when things are painful within yourself. An amazing meditation technique that I still use when I have physical pain that starts to get out of hand is to focus on it with meditation and to really notice those borders, not to run from it, not to ignore it, not to hide it, but to recognize it, to think, how far does this pain radiate off of my body? Where does it radiate to? How big is it? You can begin to define it if you have pain in your own life. You can define it, and this works as well for emotional pain or things that are going on in your life. As you define it, it becomes less scary because you can see it. I think sometimes with pain, it feels like it radiates in a way that we're not defining it, so it seems bigger than us. But we are bigger than anything that we will ever encounter because we have the presence and the essence of divinity within us. It's who we are. So we are bigger than any challenges that come our way, than any pain, than any heartache. When you let your awareness rest on where the edges of the pain is, you'll notice the edges of the pain actually shifts. It changes. It's that impermanence. When I was on the mountain, it spoke to me a lot about impermanence as well. You can follow it with your awareness and just simply notice it, and you will notice it begins to lighten, it begins to shift, and it will start to release. It's kind of an amazing way to experience it, actually lessening. It's no longer an overwhelming, scary ball of nerve endings. It is simply impermeable essence that changes. You can learn to work with it further by practicing dissolving it, but simply the awareness and the grace of observation without judgment will bring a lot of relief. This also makes it so one no longer feels hopeless about the pain. Learning to embody the light of grace is a huge lesson. We all impact others with every single action that we have, every single choice that we make, every word that we speak, even the thoughts that we have impact the others around us. They feel the energy, they resonate and react to the energy that comes off of us, just as you react to the energy of others. One of the things the mountain spoke to me quite a bit about was balancing our Aini, balancing ourselves so that no matter what is going on around you, no matter what others say, no matter what energy you interact with, you can maintain the sense of balance, the sense of peace within yourself. Have you ever noticed that when you walk into a room where people have just had an argument, you can feel that tension in the room? It can be palpable, even if no one has even said a word, because we are energy beings. We radiate energy around us through what the National Institutes of Health call our biofield, or what mystics call the aura. Our thoughts lead to this energy. When one is having a bad day and doesn't pay attention to the light of grace, they might be very short with the store clerk at the grocery store or at the convenience store where they buy their gas. Or maybe they're even short with their spouse as they just want to be left alone to sit with their thoughts. Maybe they're mad at someone at work and they don't feel that they can talk to that person, so they take it out on their spouse and kids. Does it make them feel better to yell at the kids? Do they feel relieved or vindicated at the end of the night? Probably not. It's one of the things sometimes as humans we've probably all experienced. But it doesn't really make anything better. It probably brings a little guilt at the end of the day, or you just stay feeling that intensity, the agitation intensity. They may even feel worse afterwards. It may even stir up a whole can of worms with whoever they put that energy out onto, bringing the family into a new argument. Did you know that most of the times when people fight, they're actually not really even fighting about what they're upset about? What we're upset about is what we need to get more in touch with and less with the light of grace. When you give yourself time to process and calm down, you bring in the light of grace into yourself. And then you can put the words to what you are really feeling, what you are really wanting to talk about, what you really care about. Embodying the light of grace also means giving others time to process what you say and what you need. Not jumping to conclusions and learning to pause, will help you to be able to have the space to process what you need to process within yourself. There is so much with simply learning to pause instead of reacting to a situation, and that will help you so much in not regretting something that you say. The light of laughter is another big key here. Learning to laugh every day is so important. There are a lot of crazy things that happen in life to all of us, all the time. There are a lot of good things that happen, and that you may have been turning your head saying, what the heck was that? When you learn to laugh, and a lot of things that are harder. So a lot of good things that happen, and a lot of things that have you turning your head going, what just happened? What was that? How did that happen? When you learn to laugh and let go of it, you're giving yourself the best medicine. Being able to recognize how silly all of these things really are that we sometimes get upset about, how impermeable they are, how things always change. And when we pause and we bring in the light of grace, we're able to carry ourselves in a way that even when these challenges are happening, we continue to embody grace in our lives, which makes the world better for everyone around us, including yourself. Laughter causes a chain of things to happen as well. Chemically in our brains, it causes a release of endorphins that flow through us and cause us to actually feel better than when we're yelling or frustrated or screaming or crying or anything like that. Endorphins have those feel-good emotions that will lift us up so we then have the strength to deal with whatever challenges are coming to us. People have often asked me when they hear about part of our history, how did you get through that? And oftentimes I just reply about how we laugh. JJ and I have been in a lot of sticky situations, and we laugh about it all the time, because what is the alternative? To get upset, to worry, to be afraid, to be frustrated. That won't change anything. But when we instead laugh about it, even the things that are really hard, we instead have learned to just laugh about it, then we have our presence and the fullness of our mind to be able to deal with whatever it is that we're dealing with. Some of the heavier emotions cloud over our judgment and cloud over our ability to see how we really want to react. Sometimes there will be times where you don't feel like laughing at all. We'd had a few times where we'd realized there had been a little while since we had laughed, and it was very hard to find something to laugh about at the time, but we would make ourselves just fake laugh, just pretend that we were laughing, which sounds so ridiculous. You find yourself laughing for real, and that really helps. It clears the air, it clears the heavy emotions. It gives you the ability to have a clear head, to be able to think and decide and choose how to react in these situations. Sometimes I've heard people say, well, why would it happen to you? How could that have happened to you? Well, why not me? How am I different than any of you or anybody else in the world? It's going to happen because it's part of our human experience. Why not me with all of the challenges? And what a great thing, because it gives me things I can use to learn from so that I can grow, so I can find more strength in whatever it is you choose to increase within yourself from having challenges. Things happen in everyday life. It is part of life to learn to rise to these challenges. If I sit in the energy of thinking how hard or sad or unfair it is, well, I could really fall down a pretty dark hole pretty easily that would be very hard to climb out of. But instead, I laugh at it. Laughter helps you to see the irony of it as well. Laughter is energizing, and laughter can sometimes be a little bit sarcastic if it needs to be at first to get towards the real laughter. It also can bring you a ray of hope, a ray of sunshine that comes even when the sky is dark and stormy. With the internet now, it's amazing. You can look at cat videos anytime you need to laugh. Laughter is a way to maintain your power and stay out of being a victim. I love to laugh in spite of pain. I laugh in the face of fear because it dispels the scariness. I laugh because the alternative isn't very good. And when you get to the space where you can see life from a higher perspective, that perspective can actually be really quite funny. When you come into looking at it from this perspective, you gain your own ability to not take yourself too seriously, and you give yourself permission to make mistakes. Another aspect of grace is giving yourself permission to make mistakes. Sometimes we strive for being perfect, and that is not a reality that any of us can exist in. Letting go of being critical of yourself and actually laughing at yourself is a really good practice to have. Let go of being critical of others as well, because none of us are perfect. None of us should ever be judged by our worst day, and we never know if somebody is having their worst day around us, or if it feels like their worst day, whether it is or not. So learning to laugh, learning to let go, learning to accept others for who they are, accepting people for where they are, accepting them for being very different from who you are at times, and accepting that that is the path that they are choosing in this life. I believe that most people really do want to do well in life. And something I've seen over and over is when you give people grace, they are suddenly able to perform so much better. So give yourself grace too. Instead of being critical or wondering why you didn't do this or how you forgot that or whatever the criticism is in your head, give yourself grace. Love yourself. And suddenly you will be noticing that you are doing well too. And whenever you have things that come up where you feel like you're getting in a mode of where you could be scared or you feel like you just failed something miserably, recognize that this is a perfect opportunity to give yourself grace and how good it feels to recognize you made a mistake and that's okay. And guess what? You're still here. You're still surviving. You still have more chances. It may not be the same thing, but for something else. For one example, with being in Japan, of course, there were several things that were a bit challenging. One of them was getting on the trains. There was one night where I was supposed to be at a certain place and I had to take a train from Osaka back to Kyoto, and I made it almost to Kyoto, which is quite a long train ride, and I got on the wrong transfer and ended up back in Osaka. It was a very long day, but I gave myself grace with it. I thought, well, I'm going to pay attention out the windows and let me see what things I didn't notice before, because I was focusing more on resting on my way the first time. And there were a few wrong trains that I got on. The woman that I stayed at was in a house in the countryside, and she didn't speak any Japanese. And one week didn't speak any English, I'm sorry, didn't speak any English. And one of the days that we had another person staying there, she had 2 bedrooms. He was an astrophysicist that lived in Japan there for a conference. And she was talking to him a bit more than what I could follow. I've been learning for 4 years, but I still have a long ways to go. Japanese is very difficult. But I heard that her conversations with him were a bit longer than some of the things he was repeating. And at one point I said, no, really, what did she say just then? And he said, well, she says you get lost a lot here. I said, that's true. And she said, that's actually what she really likes about you. I was like, oh, okay, great. When we accept the things that we're not so great at, we can really laugh about them and it makes it more fun. I had watched a couple other people that I'd seen get lost in Japan, and I could see their fear spiking and how they were really anxious, and I'd gone over to kind of help calm them down. They were other Americans, and I'd gone over to calm them down. But it really gives you kind of a contrast of how you can be in each situation. I could have easily gotten so frustrated or wondered, will I ever make it home? Will anyone ever know where I'm at? But instead I knew, guess what? That house is still going to be in the same little city or the same little village in the same spot. And there are trains that are running all the time, and I'm going to make it there eventually. So just laugh about it. Let's see. And then one of the other things with giving yourself grace is to recognize and ask yourself, did I do better today? Or did I do my best today? Not that I was perfect. There's a big difference between saying, did I do my best? Did I give it my all? And was I perfect? Was I perfect is not a good bar to try to hold yourself to. I used to do that. It's never going to be very successful. But if you say, did I do my best? You can say, wow, I really worked hard today. I really tried today. I may have not done anything I meant to accomplish, but I really tried. And hopefully I laughed as well along the way. Determine what your own marker is for what questions you want to ask yourself. It's really good to reflect at the end of the night. But I would suggest some things along the lines of, did I do the best with what I knew? What did I learn that I can implement next time? How did I have something that I could find that had some gratitude within what I saw today? Or where could I find a little laughter in today? Did I spread love to those that I was around today? Did I live in the light of acceptance and grace today? How many times did I laugh today? Those are really good questions at the end of the night. I would not be here if it weren't for the ability to laugh. Laughter keeps you young as well. If there is nothing to make yourself laugh, as I mentioned, just start laughing and you will eventually start laughing for real, because it is funny to hear laughter. I've run across people many times in grocery stores or malls or things like that, and they would say, I knew you were here somewhere because I could hear your laugh from over there. I think it's part of my normal daily talk is laughter. So the secret, the way that you can become victorious and overcoming insurmountable odds every single time is with your perception. How do you see it? The outcome may not be what you expected it to be. It may not be what you originally hoped for. But again, the three main things to remember to achieve victory in life, one is to remember, actually, before the first three, is exactly that point, knowing that it's your perspective. It's not a gauge of what you think the ideal should be. It's not a gauge of what someone else says it should be. It's how do you perceive your life? You make the rules for your life. So see yourself doing the best that you can with what you know and learning more each day and giving yourself grace. And then giving yourself the grace. How do you embody the light of grace with where you are in every interaction that you have? This will help you when you look back on your life to be proud of who you are and what you have done and how you have engaged in life on every level, giving yourself that light of grace. And acceptance. How do you accept where things are while knowing that you have the ability to choose how you perceive it and how you will react with it? Recognizing that acceptance, accepting yourself, I'll say again, for who you are, where you are, at this exact point in life, knowing you're right where you're supposed to be. No regrets about what has happened in the past, because when you pull your energy into the present moment by accepting yourself, you pull back your power. When you're regretting things from the past or you're worrying about things in the future, you're sending your energy out to the past and into the future, and you only have part of yourself here in the present moment. Instead, when you recognize you are here now, and the only thing you can change, the only thing you can impact is your choices right now. And your choices right now will set you up, kind of like a game of pool. If you're really good, you're setting yourself up for an amazing future by being just in the present moment and not worrying about the future. Just being here now, things are going to line up in a way that you see those challenges, you see the obstacles as challenges that you can learn from with gifts that are at the end of them. Accepting yourself, choosing how you perceive it and how you react with it. When you accept where things are, where you are, then you stand in the power of the present moment to really live your life. And bringing laughter into your daily life. This was from the bakery that I passed. All of these pictures were from last month in Japan. This was a little bakery that I passed in their front window, and I would get my fruit sandwich for dinner and something for breakfast, usually every evening. Bringing laughter into your daily life. If you drop something and it breaks, laugh about it, because how sad is it to cry over it? There were many times when I would have muscle spasms and I might throw a glass of water across the room and hit the TV, or somebody, maybe even a guest a time or two, and I could have been really upset. Oh my gosh, how did I hurt them? How upset are they? But it was water. It really wasn't a bad thing. The glass shattered. But to laugh about it is much better. I had a couple people look at me sometimes like, did you just throw that at me? And I would laugh, and it diffuses the situation too. Laughter is also very contagious. Laughter will fill you with the freedom to know that you are okay. You are here in this present moment, and you are okay here in this moment, no matter what is going on around you. Even when I was staying in the hospital at times, we were the room that had laughter coming through it, and it helps, it cleanses. Laughter is cleansing in a way that tears can be very cleansing as well, but laughter, I feel, fills your soul. So sometimes we have to cry because there are things that we need to process, to grieve, to let go, and it cleanses that as it releases the tears from our body. But laughter fills your soul with this light that is energizing and contagious and incredible. Laughter empowers you to be authentically who you are while also being very lighthearted within yourself. I hope that gives you a few things to think about for the rest.